Welcome, everybody. We're just getting the backup stream underway in just a few moments here. Just before we do, please remember that this is a listener-supported show, so if you want to support us on Patreon, KiwiBank, or the little drop-down PayPal buttons on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, we'd really appreciate it. If you don't love the show that much or whatever, but you just like it, give it a like. If you think it's really good, though, give it a subscribe. Now, with that being said, let's get the backup channel running, and we should be underway any moment now. There we go. All right. Backup channel's running, and here we go, folks. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes. And my very special guest is Daniel Suter, is the creator of VoteNow.nz, and he's also been working with the Outdoors Party for some time now, I take it as well, Daniel, haven't you?
Yeah, thanks, Vinny, I have. I'm not, really don't have any political aspirations, not really into politics, but I really like Sue and quite a few other people at the Outdoors Party. So,
And while you've been working with them, what has been your first impression of the Billy TK and the NZPP phenomenon? And I ask because I'm just a moment to illustrate people here. This broadcast has been sponsored by the New Zealand Public Party, wanting to reclaim New Zealand for all the people. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, they can now take donations. If you want to go to the links in the description, you can sign up and do all sorts of things. But anyway, with that being said, tell us about your first impressions.
Well, I mean, I think, Billy T is a phenomenon for sure. He's amazing, come out of nowhere, and he's saying things that, like you said, no other politicians ever said. So 2020 is one of those years, isn't it? I think it started off for me on New Year's Day. The sky was orange and red, and it seemed kind of surreal, like out of a movie. And then this pandemic, being locked down, these are all firsts. And then, of course, Billy comes along, and he's talking about this Agenda 2021 and police state and all these kind of deep and dark issues. And he's a brave man. He's popular. And I think he's doing a great thing.
This has been a tough time and turbulent for politics as well, and I'm concerned personally that this might be our last free-ish election, but I'm starting to question whether or not we've even had free elections from now to from the beginning of this country. Like how long have corporate scumbaggery been actually in charge of this country? Because as far as I know, corporations have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the United States itself was founded on the British East India Trading Company. If you don't believe that, then have a look at the British East India Trading flag and the United States flag, and they're virtually identical, except instead of stars in the corner, they've got a Union Jack. So I'm starting to believe that there's a possibility we may have always been run by a corporate government, and now is the very first time I've ever heard any politician actually talk about that, let alone every single other issue that he's talking about. So it's been weird for me as a cynical journalist, frankly, because there's this strange sensation. What is that? Is that hope? I can't feel hope. This is.
Let's hope so. Excuse the pun. Yeah, no, let's hope so. No, I think there's really a sense probably for all New Zealanders that this is the time to stand up, and democracy, like you say, if we have even had a democracy, but certainly when it comes to freedoms, we shouldn't rest on our laurels and assume that our freedoms will always be there. We should actively be pushing back and making sure that we're creating freedom.
Now, as I say, this is a strange time in history. So I'm just wondering, can we make this democracy thing, which is basically two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner? can we perfect that using the technology that we've got? I mean, to a large degree, I recall working with the Legalised Cannabis Party for the last 3 years or so, and the amount of time and expense that we saved simply by using meetings via Skype instead of everybody coming to the exact same location was stupendous. And so I believe that technology is probably going to be a much better solution than any political solution we could imagine.
So true, isn't it? Like, we're in a day and age where we literally have self-driving cars. We have incredible technologies. You can type in almost anything into Google and get back, generally a pretty good result. You can pick up your phone and voice dictate your messages. Doesn't always work perfectly, but these are pretty phenomenal technologies. And actually, voting online is relatively really a simple technology, and I think we've been able to do this for probably 20 years now. I think the real question is, why aren't we?
Well, let's have a look at votenow.nz. Hopefully the admins can pop that in. It's simply votenow.nz. And what have we got here? You're looking at the screen that I'm looking at. So just tell us a little bit about it here.
Right. So I mean, basically, the premise with Vote Now is, the current system is one vote every 3 years is not a democracy, right? We believe that you should be able to choose and vote on issues that are important to you as often as you like, and we believe people should be voting on policies, not politicians. So that's that in a nutshell. That's it. So what we've been doing is I've just sort of got together the framework for a basic voting system, and then I've put up some sample questions which I think could be interesting to people. So, like, just looking at those ones there, is there anything that interests you, Vinny?
Would you agree to another lockdown? Absolutely not. What are the top issues that we faced in New Zealand right now? Agenda 2030. Do you think that Billy TK has controlled opposition? No, he's completely out of control. Which voting platform should we be using? Ultimately, at the moment right now, it's difficult to know if the current voting system that we have is even reliable. But then again, what was it? Mark Twain said that if voting made any difference, they wouldn't allow it, and I was kind of on the of the thought that in actual fact, if voting did make a difference, then political parties would probably spend millions and millions of dollars and time and expertise trying to manipulate the result that they want. And I think I'm slightly more correct than Mark Twain. I mean, and that's the most arrogant statement I've ever made in my life, ladies and honestly, I feel disgusted with myself from having said it. But at the end of the day, that's what I feel, because the largeness of this problem that we face here. Let's have a look at this: raw milk raids, unregistered suppliers cost ministry $70,000 a year. Yeah, would you agree to forced vaccinations? Absolutely not. So you've got some great starter questions on there, and this is since when? When did you put these up?
Oh, this is like literally a week. This is just sort of sample data. I've had a couple of people from the Outdoors Party just helping me out. So if you want to go and say, click on, would you agree to another lockdown? Just click on the Vote Now button.
Yeah.
And we'll go in there, and you can kind of scroll down, have a wee look. No way. Lockdown is complete overreaction, which causes more harm than good. And we've got Sue in there.
No, we're all suffering of the health and economic effects of the first lockdown. Much better that we focus on our health with good nutrition. It's all right. Lifestyle, environment, and education. We need to make a plan to protect our freedoms, as once they erode, they are hard to recover, much like an earthquake plan or tsunami plan. I think it's also, what was it, socialism. You can vote your way into it, but you have to shoot your way out of it, generally speaking. That's the old saying. Yeah. We've got a number of comments and things of that nature here, and people are voting on them, voting them up and down, that kind of thing. So already it's 10 times more effective at generating discussion and public response as the mainstream media is, who essentially, what was it you told me the other day when we were speaking, that there used to be voting up of comments on mainstream media? Was it stuff articles or something of that nature?
Yeah.
But because the vast majority of the comments were against the narrative of what the stuff articles were attempting to promote, they disabled the comments.
That's exactly right, Vinny. Now, if I can just go into screen share and share my screen.
Sure.
I'll just where are we? Go on to Chrome here. So,
you've got to share screen first.
Oh, hang on. Where are we? And oh no, it says I'm sharing. Stop sharing. Let's try that again. Share screen. And now, can you see that now?
Now we can. Yep.
Yeah, great. So if we click on the Vote tab here of Vote Now, you'll see that we've got basically this is looking at stuff, and roughly about 2 years worth of data. First thing you'll notice is when you click on the date added, you'll see that they're getting maybe 13, 14, 27 comments.
Would we be able to punch that up a little bit, make the whole screen just larger? There you go. That's better.
There we go. Okay. So what you'll notice is, first of all, like recent articles, hardly getting any conversation. Okay. Compare that with 2018. What was happening? Let's just go. We'll get rid of that. So this is the most commented on articles, and you can see here we're getting up to 40,000 votes on some articles. So let's just take a simple one. It's not particularly political, or it's just a simple conversation about plastic bags. So this is how it works. There's the headline, which you'll recognise this is the original stuff article, and if you scroll down the bottom, there should be a list of comments. 1.1k. Okay, so they're there, and they used to allow upvoting and downvoting. What happened was, after the mosque shooting in Christchurch, a week to the day after that, they shut down the upvoting and downvoting. And it was actually hidden away in the terms and conditions. There was over 1,100 comments on that terms and conditions change. And it was the only way you could find it was through Facebook. And the comments from people were like almost unanimously, this is censorship. This is not undemocratic. This is terrible. I'm never going to read stuff again. I'm quitting your site. I'll never be back. This is terrible. But they went ahead and did it anyway. And then 2 years later, they sell for $1. So you have to ask the question, why would any business do that? And also their explanation of why they're not allowing upvotes and downvotes was that it leads to extremist points of view being highlighted. And what I'd like to prove to you, Vinny, is that that's not correct. Now, if we look at this one here, the top comment by David Corner is actually, what is a single-use bag? I use supermarket bags for other things as well. And okay, fair enough. But if we look at it, there's quite a few negatives on that, as well as a lot of positives. But if we scroll down and we find something that's uncontentious, look at this: bring back the glass milk bottle. What a great idea! Like almost no one disagrees with that. What about this one? What also concerns me is the huge amount of sushi containers that get used for 5 minutes and then thrown out. Then we've got, this one here. How about the government really flex its muscle and ban one-off packaging that's not fully recyclable in New Zealand? So what I was finding, Vinny, from studying this, so first of all, the reason I wrote this program was that you could not just order by what's the most positive voted comment. Stuff wouldn't allow you to do that. They basically give you a chronological or some other kind of popular comment. But it's a little bit like the same with YouTube now. There'll be 7,000 comments. You can't just order by what's the most upvoted. And so it's kind of like, wow, what's going on? Is there a little conspiracy happening here? Is there this wisdom of the crowd? Because that's what this whole idea is about, Vinny, is that there's this 5-minute video by the BBC, and I won't play the whole thing now, but essentially what it is there's this guy, and he talks about how it was originally discovered, which is they were cutting up a cow, and they asked the audience, what is the net weight of this cow, when it's all chopped up into slices of meat, which is a pretty horrible thing. I'm a vegan, I'm not really into that. But anyway, point being, the crowd never got it right, and the farmers were generally more accurate, but when you average the guess of the crowd, it was remarkably accurate. And so this BBC documentary goes on to show that there's a jar of jelly beans. He counts them out. There's 4,514. And then he goes around to asks 160 people for their guesses, and he adds them all up. And should we play that for a second? Is that?
I'm not sure how the audio is going to work terribly well.
Okay.
Yeah, the audio is not working at all there.
Okay. So the point is, he goes through, adds up all the guesses, 160 guesses, and it's out by 4 jelly beans over 4,000. Right? So the total guess is 722,000 divided by 160, and hey presto, it's out by 0.1%. And he's like, oh, well, you would think. So there's 4,510. You can see the surprise. This is the BBC. It's not some, conspiracy channel. It's like just a basic. They're explaining what the wisdom of the crowd is. And it's a little bit like a normal distribution curve. This is a statistical phenomena that occurs in nature, right? You get enough people to guess, and hey presto, there's this, that average guess, or maybe it's the median. So you get rid of the outlying, the people who think there's 100,000 jelly beans in there, and the people who think they're 50. And right in the middle is this incredibly accurate guess. And so I came across this. I had this epiphany, tried to vote on stuff. I wasn't allowed to vote on stuff. Who knows why? So then the first thing I do when I can't vote on something or something goes wrong, I go inspect element. And I'm like, what's happening in here? What's going on behind the scenes? I
was starting to think while you were saying that you and me should have gone halves in buying stuff, 50 cents a pop, and we actually might have made some money off of this thing by restoring all the freedom of speech on the platform.
That's it. And isn't it a great example of what happens when you try and censor people, Vinny? If you're a business, you try and censor people, they just say, well, stuff you. I mean, excuse the pun, but yeah, pretty much. Right? And then you've got no business. 2 years later, you sell it for $1. So the question is, Vinny, was it stuff that thought that upvoting and downvoting led to extremist points of view being highlighted? Or was it the government that took this opportunity after they took all the guns to then do a gag order to New Zealand's most popular conversation platform at the time?
So you first you lose your guns, then you lose your speech because you've got nothing to back up your speech with. Is that about right?
Well, I mean, you're the guy that runs this channel. I'm just like I'm just.
I'll take that as a yes.
Anyway, so that's the idea, is that there is this wisdom in the crowd. We've got already got 10 million votes. We've got 25,000 news articles, and we've got 500,000 comments. Okay, and I think if we go through, cannabis is a really interesting one. If we have a look at that, what you'll see is the most commented on cannabis article was this one: National Cannabis Bill would not allow any smoking. There's a little snapshot of it. And what's really interesting is these ones here are fairly contentious, a lot of positives, but a lot of negatives. If we go down to Ed Winky, this is my personal favourite. Do you want to read that one out, Vinny?
It's not so much a war on drugs, but a war on consciousness and people's rights. The governments around the world back in the 60s all followed America into this legislation to control people's personal habits. Why? Maybe because it made people think about the big picture rather than following them blindly into wars based on lies. Vietnam, Iraq. The government should have no business in controlling personal habits, as prohibition doesn't work. Fact. They tried with alcohol first. Fail, then a herb or weed that grows in the dirt that has been used for a few thousand years by humans, always going to fail and cost the taxpayer millions in the process. They should be spending all that money on legislation, education and rehabilitation. It's just ridiculous it lasted this long.
So what are you thinking about the wisdom of the crowd, Vinny? You said you had 3 years on the Aotearoa Cannabis Party.
And let's not forget
how's that?
that's only the most recent 3 years. The 10 years before that, I was helping out the legalized cannabis party, and cannabis has always been a hot button issue for me. So let's have a look at the wisdom of the crowd on this one. What are the votes in terms of like? Can we rely on that? That's the third most highest voted comment with the least down votes. So essentially, you could make some minor tweaks to that comment and what have you, and you might reduce the other down votes, and then you get basically 100% approval. That's essentially what the crowd is saying to a large degree, isn't it?
That's right. And I think I think the rational thing to do is not just look at what's the most upvoted, right? Like if it's really, really contentious, then I think what we need to do is look through for the ones like this one here. Again, it's fairly uncontentious. You know, what's this one? Yawn. Just legalize it and let it be.
I promise you the sky won't fall down and you won't be in danger of psychotic, drug-fueled killer zombies. Or we could just keep fighting a pointless war, wasting resources and money. If you have half a brain, you'll know it's going to be legalized eventually anyway, probably in the next 5 years. So why fight it now? And that's what's problematic about that, as I recall Dr. Green in 2010 saying cannabis will be legal by next year, or it'll be legal in the next 5 years, or it'll be legal in the next 10. And it never does. And I think that's because people have been given this is off topic by the way. I think that if people are given a positive future to look forward to, where they don't actually have to contribute and it's going to happen anyway, that will stop them from actually taking action, and that will prevent that positive future from coming into existence.
That's right. That's very true. So actually, Sue asked me a very interesting question. She's like, "Oh, what happens if how does it work with the downvoting?" And I thought, oh, this is an interesting one. So if we scroll right to the bottom here, 310 comments later, and we start getting into lots of negatives, let's read out the absolute bottom of the pile, Vinny. What's the most unpopular
Surely
comment?
there are other treatments already in existence for the relief of pain, so why the focus on cannabis? Does it have unique properties?
Sorry, Barry. You just, minus 57. 57 downvotes, 10 upvotes.
And I think that's because, to a large degree, especially with cannabis articles, you have people who are interested in cannabis, like me, who to a large degree often know what they're talking about. But that's on a spectrum. Okay, so on the one hand, you have the calm, reasonable cannabis voters who know what they're talking about, and on the other hand, you have the completely mad as shit stoners. Apologise for the language, ladies and gentlemen. And I think there's a lot of vitriol and a lot of anger within the cannabis movement, and I think that's perfectly justifiable, because I feel it too. As soon as somebody says you're stupid if you smoke cannabis, or tells a lie about it, because of my personal experience with the police and their lies, I haven't been traumatized by cannabis once, been traumatized by the police a number of times because of cannabis.
Right. It's, it seems a bit ridiculous, and you're right. Okay, there will be a bias. People who are interested in cannabis will be attracted to the cannabis article. And they're also more likely to have their say than people who have never even tried cannabis. But then you have to argue, well, I think it's a valid argument to say, well, people who have had experience with cannabis should be the ones commenting and should be the ones voting, because their lives are affected by it. Like a good example would be, we're closing down the school down the road. Look, if you don't have kids going there, you've never even heard of the school, you're probably not going to be attracted to vote on it. And you probably shouldn't, because your opinion's not really that important. But if you've got kids that are going there, maybe they've been going there for 10 years, all the staff, everything about that school, you should be the person voting on it. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I think experience does matter, and facts matter. And often people without experience don't have any facts. So that's the...
Right. So am I still sharing screen, or what's happening?
Not right at this moment. Not right at this moment.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, it's what we're looking at now essentially is a lapse in public consciousness, and I think that's because people aren't talking to each other, and I think I've contributed to that in a very negative way, because often this is a very, for the converted show. If you're onto it, you might enjoy this. If this is the first time hearing this, you'll switch off within minutes, simply because reality doesn't gel with those who don't live in it. And I think that to a large degree we aren't talking to each other, and as a result our perception of problems and things of that nature is a tad askew, because we may not be talking to those people who actually have experience and knowledge on all these issues. And what you've highlighted here with the Vote Now platform and many others like it, is essentially we can very, very quickly and quite accurately reverse that current quagmire.
Yeah, that's right. So what I was thinking, Billy, I don't know if it's we haven't really arranged it or anything, but what I'd like to do is actually get you to add a question on the Vote Now platform, or an article as such. I mean, I thought we could just put it out to your audience, if there's anyone on there, just to add some comments and some votes, and we can just sort of perhaps see what it looks like, and then we can check in perhaps at the end of the show, just as an example of how we can vote online, because that's the question, right? Can we create a direct democracy? Well, let's just show it. Should we do it?
Yeah, sure. Is Vinny Eastwood preaching to the converted a complete waste of time?
Do it. Well, yeah, but any question you like. And I mean, if that's your question, that's fine.
I'm sorry, it's just the first thing that came to mind, principally because I'm an idiot, and I don't listen to other people as much as I should. And also, I think a while ago, my bandmate just said, "Vinny, you laughing at your own jokes on the show, it's really starting to grate on us." And I was just like, oh, okay, let's rein in that Vinny Eastwood a bit. That was basically the idea. Now, you had you want me to do this, huh?
Well, why not? I mean, I already know how to do it. You've never used the site. One of the things I want to get feedback on is it straightforward to use?
Okay. Well, let's see how we can do that then, because on the backup over here, I'm actually logged into my Chrome, which is logged into my other Facebook. So let's just go to...
I mean, I can do it, Vinny. Do you want me to do it on my one if it's easier?
Well, I think it might actually be better for the listeners if somebody who's doing it for the first time does it, that kind of thing, to see how difficult or how easy it actually is. Because let's face facts here, ladies and gentlemen, like me, you're probably very lazy. All right, and which means that stuff has to be designed very well and work very easy. Otherwise, you're going to lose interest within a matter of moments, aren't you? So let's do this one here, logging in with Facebook. Oh, Facebook SDK returned an error, cross-site frequency, forgery validation failed, requiring param state missing from persistent data.
Go back and hit refresh. What happens is that when you've got a stale cookie on there, or an old, you need to refresh that page before you click login. Otherwise, it freaks out and thinks.
There we go. Now I'm logged in. That's all right. Okay, so how can we create a puppy here?
So if you scroll right down to the bottom, now I'll just double check the server, but you should be...
Top level article, title of the article there?
Yeah, just whack that in.
Preaching to the converted. Converted, a bad idea.
Okay, and then for the link, there's no link because we're not linking to an article.
Well, it just reloaded itself for some reason. Okay. Vinny Eastwood preaching to the converted. Good idea or bad idea? Question mark. And then there's no link to use. Do we have to? Or
no link, and don't worry about the category stuff. But okay. you do need to go show on homepage.
Show on homepage, and then we can just add article.
Just add article.
Okay, correct.
Yep, and then that should automatically refresh your. Yep, there you go. So I'm going to go on there, vote now. So you scroll to the bottom of that list and click on vote now.
There
Vinny Eastwood. Yep.
Cool.
Now, are you screen sharing here, Vinny, or?
I'm not actually. So it's surprising that you knew where I was and what I was doing. So
Yeah, no, just
well,
just
that shows how easy it is, isn't it, folks? Yeah. So let's get into this because I was doing Firefox there for a moment. Okay. In total, 0 comments were made and 0 votes were cast. So what is the crowd saying? All right.
So Vinny, if you click on
if we
live
copy
view,
that link and we pop that into the chat rooms and things of that nature, we should be able to get some audience participation on this one. So there we go, folks, in the chat rooms right now. You can come and grab that. What's next? Just have to vote in.
So Vinny, go to so you're on. Would you agree to another lockdown? So where we want to go is to the home. Yep, and then scroll down and then go to vote now.
Yeah, okay.
And then what we want to also do is click on live view. So
live view, there we are.
Yeah, so what happens is every 2 seconds that goes to the server and checks if there's been another comment or another vote. So what I'm going to do is on my end, I'm just going to put a couple more in, no bad idea. And then I'm going to put a downvote on that, and I'll put, hey, it's Dan, just throwing in some ideas here, Vinny, and I'm going to vote myself up, and I'm going to say hello.
Heidi Jensen Warren has wrote a good idea. It is good to have these discussions and make people feel that their ideas are being validated. I'd also like to make a comment here as well. The mainstream media are designed to prevent you from hearing your own voice of reason, to make you think you're alone.
Nice.
You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're right. They are wrong.
Nice. Little spelling mistake there, yep. And then
okay, mainstream media are designed to prevent you from hearing your own voice of reason, to make you think you're alone. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're right. They are wrong. There you go. And comment. All right,
great.
And also one more comment as well. My show is not for the crowd. It's for those who've already woken up. Woken up and feel alone. Well, actually, I just got to think about this just for a second, because I had explained this to somebody else one time. He says, you're just going to get all the normies to go away from you. And I say, it's not for them. It's for all the people who know all this stuff and don't think anybody believes them, and it drives them crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You're preaching to the converted, and I mean very much with the sample data and what we've been doing on Vote Now. It is they're all people who think on that same wavelength, which is why it's kind of ridiculous that we've got all these minor parties, kind of all this turmoil and disagreement, and because in a way we're all more or less on the same page, aren't we? And we really should be banding together. I was thinking this would be, how I'm kind of visualizing. Oh, there we go. Alan's in there. Give Alan a vote.
D. McLaughlin says it's a good idea. Yep.
Yep. Cool. Let's go. Let's get into this, and let's just vote people up, right? So this is what we're trying to do: is everyone who's on here, just vote it up as much as you can. Let's watch how it changes on Vinny's live view. So if you just leave that there, Vinny, and just let it. Maybe you could vote on Heidi. We'll see if we get her up the top. I've already voted for you, Vinny, on that one. I'll give you a vote on that one. Gabriella's in there. Yes, it's a good idea, Vinny. So that's the idea, is we just want to see how this looks when... So you can imagine, Vinny, if we had 100,000 people all going all at once, now this live view could be quite interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was just thinking next time on TK Tuesdays, if we have one of these running in the background or something like that, we can get the whole PPNZ bunch of people actually contributing to the show basically during the live air,
Yeah.
So this is pretty revolutionary to a large degree, but I think it's kind of like one of those old ideas, the peanut gallery, all right? When a politician used to get up and speak to the crowd and stuff, stuff like that, he might get peanuts thrown at him. He might get somebody throw a bottle at him or something of that nature. So it meant that they had a visible and visceral reaction from the crowd that either expressed their approval or disapproval. You know, if they approved, they would chuck a rose at you onto the stage. If they disapproved, they would chuck their drink at you, that kind of thing. So this is kind of like a non-violent, non-physical means of enabling the peanut gallery to have the power again to a large degree.
The thing I love about this idea of free comment too, Vinny, is that you don't know what the answer is going to be, because anyone can write anything, right? And then anyone can vote on anything. So it's not, you know, in that example you've just given, it's going to be a peanut or a rose, right? But in this situation, well, goodness knows what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it interesting to me. And that's why I think, you know, that's my goal by election time. So we've got 60 days, is that during the leaders' debate or something like this, we have this tool live. And actually, if you click on live view there, Vinny, and/or you refresh, so that will, every 2 seconds, will go, there we go. And so now you can see that that's how it's working. So if you just leave the live view on, and if there's a whole lot of people on there voting and commenting, and that would be the ideal situation, perhaps you get Billy on, and you agree on a question, you put in a couple of comments, but then you let the crowd do the work for you, and you just sit back with the live view on as you're chatting, and you can see. I mean, it's quite interesting, admittedly, just what we're doing today, but imagine that with 10 times the amount of people. Imagine it with 100 times the amount of people. And then remember back to that jar of jelly beans. How does the crowd know there's 4,514 jelly beans? I mean, they're out by a factor of 4, right? 4 over 4,000. But how does that happen? I don't know how that happens, Vinny. Perhaps you don't either.
I think it's to do with the bell curve to a large degree. So when you get a collection of intelligence, when you get a collection of experience, and you average them all out, there's this bell curve right in the middle there, and I think that the average intelligence and what have you, maybe there's an influence there. Maybe it's psionic. Maybe it's collective consciousness. Maybe there's something that we're all connected to in a wireless fashion that our brains can pick up on. All right. I think what would they call it? The fractal antenna. This is actually why I'm growing my hair long. By the way, because the DNA goes around in a coil like that, much like an aerial does. And there was a video I watched I think last year called "Why I Will Never Cut My Hair Again," and it talked about a number of things, but the most interesting I found was the experiments that the United States military did with Navajo warriors and trackers. So they'd bring in these warriors and they would induct them into the military, shave off all their hair, and then expect them to go out and start tracking the enemy, and they couldn't track anything. Right. And so I'm like, whoa, okay. Well, why don't we get a whole bunch of other Navajo in here and not cut their hair and see what happens? And they did a bunch of experiments. One experiment was that they would be sleeping next to a fire, and the test was this. Somebody had to sneak up to them and get a knife around their throat, fake knife obviously, and pretend to kill them before they woke up. And in order for the person who was sleeping to win, they had to wake up and get away before the person got to them, or they had to pretend to be asleep, and then when the person came to them, get the knife off of them and get it around their throat. Now, the guys who had their hair shaved failed the test every single time. And the guys who didn't have their hair cut off passed the test every single time. And even Nazis like Hitler, for example, he had this group of advisors called the Vril Society, and they had these great matriarchs with hair that went all the way down past their feet, really, really long. And apparently they're able to pick up signals and all sorts of stuff. And I was just thinking about this as well. Back in the day, like say Revolutionary War era, late 1700s, or even up into the 1800s, the vast majority of males had long hair. but they all wore hats as well. All right, you know, we all can see the ponytail behind the captain's hat, the three-pronged captain's hat, and all of that. Suddenly becomes an image, right? But after a certain point in the 20th century, everybody was expected to have their hair cut short, and I think maybe there's a coincidence there that might have happened. This is purely theoretical, by the way. That as a result, the male instincts basically disappeared, and female instinct was the only thing that was left. And female instinct isn't aggressive. Male instinct is aggressive. I see a threat, I go after it, you know, that kind of thing. So maybe cutting your hair, gentlemen, is the reason why we've been conquered. All right? That's just a theory off the top of my head there. But, you know, again, this is just talking about it in general. Now let's go back to our wisdom of the crowd thing over here. Let's go to that live view and reload it one more time.
Yep,
Let's go to
so
live
there we
view.
go.
Okay.
There we go. Which you're neck and neck there, Vinny. But I mean, there we go. That's you know, and of course, how this works is I'm going to go and downvote myself there, so that because it's your show, Vinny, and just stay on that live view, and I'll just show you. There we go. Dan's going to get his first negative, and there you go. You're up the top.
Heidi Jensen Warren has said, good idea. It is good to have these discussions and make people feel that their ideas are being validated. You know,
it's an excellent idea too, isn't it? Yeah.
Dan Suter, great idea, yeah. Ellen L. Mosdale wrote, yes, but lazy people can talk to others. It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You're not wrong, Alan. You're not wrong. Preaching to the converted isn't the best idea. But again, I'm not sure I'm mature enough yet. All right. I've been questioning my level of maturity these last couple of years rather intensely, because I think that because I'm so childish and flippant about things, that it's made me less of a broadcaster and less trustworthy to people. And people need to be able to trust their broadcasters, I think, to a large degree. But at the same time, what's more important than being able to trust your broadcaster is being able to confirm fact or fiction for yourself.
So, Vinny, just getting back to what you were talking about, this idea of long hair, and obviously with the Navajo Indians, that's kind of fact, right? Like these, when you cut the hair, you lose part of your brain function, you know, for use of a better word. Now, what I find really hard to believe is the fact that we're asked once every 3 years which color to vote for. You know, like literally you could give a 2-year-old a crayon and they could vote, right? You know, what color do you like, son? You know, do you like blue? You like green? And okay, you could argue, well, no, there's policies and, you know, you get to vote for a party. But I think what it shows is that we're underutilizing and also perhaps underestimating the average person's intelligence. And, you know, we all have these phenomenal brains. And like you say, you know, you're cutting your hair, you lose part of your instinct. You know, and we take it for granted that we can hop on a cell phone and there's a cell phone tower over there and this little device with a battery in it sending signals, and there's things happening billions of times a second, you know, waves getting converted from an analog wave into a digital wave, and then it comes through. And you know, it's mind-boggling. Just the complexity of nature and the universe, and yet we're kind of like, oh no, the people, the crowd, the masses, the what do they call it, the mob. We can't possibly let the mob decide anything. And yet we see this wisdom of the crowd, you know, not just in the jelly bin experiment, but in all things, you know, like Wikipedia. You know, Google is a great example of wisdom of the crowd. You know, I watched this documentary from Google, and they were saying there was this lake called Lake Tahoe. And when people put in Tahoe, they were thinking they must be talking about the lake, but it turned out most people wanted the hardware store. So their algorithms always had the lake first, but what they found was, you know, the hardware shop, which was number 5 or 6 on the list, because people kept on clicking on it, eventually it got up to be the top. So Google is also using the crowd to find tailor those results, because of the fact of the matter is,
well, at least if you're looking for a hardware store, but if you're looking for 9/11 as an inside job, that's way down the list.
Well, no, but it used to be that you typed in 9/11 and then it would come up with the suggestions, and the first suggestion would be truth, right? You type in 9/11, it's like, that's it. That's what people are looking for. That's what people are typing in, 9/11 truth, right? And so I don't know.
Or at least they did, but they've corrected the algorithms now. That was the point I was making.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so we've seen it, and we've both seen that happen, that it used to be that, 9/11 would bring up 9/11 truth. And just in the last few years, and especially now with Facebook as well, we're seeing a lot more censorship. So, so direct democracy, not a problem. Definitely the technology is super easy. What's not easy is getting the crowd to get on there and vote. And, the problem is with the corporate controlled media, we're not going to get the true result. Or I don't think we can, I think it's a bad idea to trust Facebook or Google. Maybe I don't know about Google, but definitely with Facebook. I don't think we should be trusting that to be our voting platform. So getting back to vote now, so you've seen a basic demo of how it works. Then the questions become, well, Dan, you wrote the program, so how do we know you're not manipulating things in the background? Okay, that's a fair question. Right, and you should ask that. It's just like the Billy T thing. You shouldn't just go, love what he's saying, love what he stands for, but it doesn't mean you should automatically trust a person, right? Like you should be critical, and you should look at, okay, what could be the downfalls here. So I've kind of been thinking about that, and what I think is it's a little bit like the cryptocurrency thing, where when two people, say you and me, would exchange some cryptocurrency, Vinny, what would happen is there's like anyone who's got the app downloaded on their phone, or anyone who's got a computer that's trying to, mine Bitcoins, would then get a copy of that transaction. And then so what you have is you have literally thousands of computers that all get a copy of that transaction, more or less at the same time. And then they all agree, hey, this is the latest version of the blockchain, includes Vinny and Dan swapping whatever, a Bitcoin, for example. Right? And then so what that then becomes is it's almost impossible to hack. Because in order for people to delete that transaction between you and me, they'd have to hack all those 1,000 computers simultaneously.
So if it was blockchain, you mean? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, cryptocurrency, blockchain, not the same thing. Blockchain is how you process data. Cryptocurrency is how you pay for stuff online. So, yeah.
So that's right. So the blockchain technology is should be the technology behind the voting platform, right? So we know something that's why governments have had quite a reaction to this cryptocurrency, because you and me could make a deal, and there's nothing they can do about it, and there's no one actually even knows about it, right? So it's not taxable, it's not traceable, they can't control it. It's out of their control. It's now sits on 1,000 servers. That's like peer-to-peer file sharing. They can't take it down. So that's how I think the voting should be done. As it should be done, with like basically lots of people have a copy of the software that runs the voting platform. Like, so that's how I would do it. Is once I'm sort of finished with this, I'll load it up to GitHub. If you knew how to run a server, you could just download it. You could set up the voting platform yourself, and then whenever someone voted, you'd also get a copy of that vote, right? Yeah. And then the other thing about it being open source is that if you knew how to program, you could scan through the code and you could check if there's anything nefarious happening.
Now, I was writing a bit of a thing for all the politicos and stuff like that. It goes into, how to present yourself, how to present your ideas, what colours work, and that kind of thing, just at a base level in terms of being politically active. Have you got the right technology? Are you using it appropriately? That kind of thing. But it goes on to talk about all the other things that you don't really know about, how the government structure actually really works. And I thought one of the great things would be idea is put a vision for the future. Because I like sci-fi movies quite a bit. No matter how dystopian they are, I love it. And I think that is the reason why we've all been brainwashed into accepting the terrible reality that's coming, is because we've seen it as a form of entertainment right? And I think, ladies and gentlemen, reality, when it comes and it's in that form that you've seen in the dystopian sci-fi movies, you won't think of it as a form of entertainment. You'll think of it as hell on earth, all right? And you've got to tell the difference between that. And I think the only really way people can tell the difference between that is if they have a reverse fantasy, all right? For example, if we have a look over here, writing down, neighbourhoods organise themselves to ensure their independence with community gardens, alternative currencies, weekly street meetings and neighbourhood watch groups, ensuring food, economic and physical independence. Every member of the neighbourhood is involved in the decision-making process for their neighbourhood, and it's all done in person to balance the need for human interaction and technology use. Broader governance issues are dealt with via the D3, the Direct Digital Democracy voting app tied to the OSG, the open source governance web platform. A secure login allows people to participate in the program, which is simple and easy to use. It has sections for the street, community, city, region, and country. Users can scroll through each of them to see what's happening, comment on legislation that is proposed, read others' comments, and vote them up or down, and have laws changed in real time. The legislation is amended according to the most popular recommendations and then voted on. In the case of controversial national legislation, a BCIR, binding citizens-initiated referenda, will be run and all members of the population will be encouraged to research and vote on the issue. The system ensured that people who are interested get involved and directly help in the running of their communities, but are unable to gain power over others and are incapable of receiving money directly for their contributions.
No, brilliant. Did you wrote that, Vinny?
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Yeah, I mean, can you just go back to the vote now, and I'll just show you another page which kind of relates to that.
Sure. There we go.
So just if you go and click on policies, I just
policies. There we go.
Yep. So I think that's. Is that working?
One moment, please. It's loading. Oh, and also my Firefox can freeze up in the middle of a show. That if we're doing this, there we go. Cool.
Right. So that's kind of sort of. I think it ties in really. We're obviously on the same page here. One policy. Listen to the people. One mandate. I had execute the will of the people, but we decided to change that. But that's the idea. And then code of conduct. Basically, we've got to have integrity, right? So like you say, we need to be educated before you go and vote, ideally, right?
Yep.
We need to stay focused, right? Like we could get distracted by mainstream media, who's going to go to the new movie or whatever. But we should stay focused on the issues that are important. We should try and keep it simple. Okay. It should be anyone of any intelligence should be able to use it. We should also have I think it's really important to remember kindness. Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
I think that's fairness, actually.
Is that fairness?
Yeah, kindness is, I don't know. To a large degree, we've been so kind to, say, Jacinda, for example, and it hasn't worked out terribly well for us. In fact, her main thing is kindness. I'm going to lock you down because I'm so kind to you. I'm going to destroy your economy and your rights because I'm just so freaking kind.
Yeah. All right. Well, hit refresh. Hit F5 on that, Vinny.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we go, fairness. Do unto others as you had done unto you. There you go. Compassion. Those who do not know kindness are suffering and have compassion.
Well, no, have compassion for them. That should read really. Have compassion for them. I'll just update that.
But again, ladies and gentlemen, we're just doing this on the fly, so I apologise for the technical aspect of this. But yes.
No, and that's the idea, Vinny, is actually like the very voting platform itself should be created democratically. Right, so that's what I'm trying to demonstrate here. Is it's not about me laying down, Dan's world, Dan's idea of democracy. I think we should be working together, and this thing with minor parties not working together. It's all egos, isn't it? Everyone's ego. Like, oh, Billy's like, no, you got to follow me. And outdoors party. Well, you don't even have a party. Like, well, why should we follow you? Like the bigger picture. We're just got to work together.
I mean, I completely understand the egos thing because I'm a wanker. And the thing about being a wanker is you don't necessarily think other people contribute really well as you do and that kind of thing. And you think that your own contributions need to be appreciated, need to be rewarded to a large degree. Otherwise, you don't feel valued and you basically retreat inwards and you become angry and resentful of others to a large degree. And if you watch some of the comments that you've seen coming up regarding Billy from the minor parties, you can see that resentment. You can see that people have busted their hump for years and years and years unsuccessfully to get into Parliament. They have been beating their head against the grindstone, and then Billy comes out of the woodwork. He's got a good team behind him, great skills, and the ability to actually get the message across to people more than any other minor party, and I am completely on board with them when they say things like, oh, we've been doing all of this and we shouldn't have to give it away to this guy and that kind of thing. Because if somebody came to me and said, hey, Vinny, why don't you just give me your YouTube channel that you've been working on for 10 years all by yourself just because I'm better than you? You know, I would be incensed, aflamed. However, if they had a huge team behind them, massive followings that made my channel look like nothing by comparison, and I knew that there was a contract and a power differential that I could stay in control of without losing my stake to a large degree, I'd be like, okay, what's the alternative? Get exterminated by ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery? Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I think that's where we're at. And I mean, I did want to, I mean, like you say, I'm kind of outdoors party, I suppose. Like I'm not, as I said, it's funny, there's one of the team members, Alan Rennie, came around to me one day and he's like, Dan, are you going to vote for the party? And, you know, are you loyal to the party? And I'm like, well, Alan, actually, to be honest, I'm loyal to the truth. And I think we should all be like that. And that's what I like about this idea of vote now, is you can vote however you want on any particular article, any particular thing that's happening. Maybe you think lockdown's a great thing, you know? Why are we so obsessed with this idea of the party? And then it's all of a sudden, it's all about Billy, and Billy's the new leader, and we've got to line up behind Billy and do what Billy says. You know, he's a great orator. He's a way better speaker, public speaker, than probably you or me or, you know, a lot of people in New Zealand, right? But that's one skill, you know, like he doesn't have, you know, I don't know how many years Sue Gray's been fighting with the legal system on cannabis, on 5G, incredible amount of knowledge.
You're completely right. And with the wisdom of the crowd, wherever somebody falls short in their skill base, somebody else could pick up the slack, right?
That's it.
Bingo.
That's it. So on every issue, like if it was a game of chess, you know, who's going to win? Is Jacinda going to be the best player? No, she's not. You know, so if there's, you imagine it, that you know, question, what's the next move? And it's a picture of a chessboard. I'm not going to win that one. No one's going to upvote me the most, Vinny, because I'm not the expert on chess. But the person who comes up with, you know, rook to b4 or whatever, and who really knows their stuff, they're going to get upvoted. And that's how it works. There's an example of a chess champion of the world playing in the internet audience. And he said it was the hardest game he had played to that point in his life. And apparently he won by going into the forums and cheating, more or less, right? So it just shows you that, you know, you'd kind of think, oh, you know, the mob, you know, they're moronic, right? They don't know what to do. How can they make decisions to look after our country? But it's not actually true. When you get a group of people together and talking about an issue, generally speaking, the experts are going to rise to the top and their points of view. So, and I think we should, have faith in each other rather than this idea of we put all the faith into one person. And like you were saying, you know, like this thing with Billy, I'm not anti-Billy at all. I think he's amazing. He's really putting his life on the line to go out there and say all of this stuff. So we should all be supporting him, in my opinion. But I don't support the idea of we put all our faith in one person, because this is what's happened in the past. One person is corruptible. I mean, he's got family, you know, like if someone came and said, look, I'm going to kill your children unless you do this, I'd just say, sure, whatever you need me to do, right? Like I'm fallible. I'll admit that, right? So don't put your faith in me put your faith in the people of New Zealand.
That sounds very similar to what the American military teaches their soldiers, is that when you're out there fighting, don't fight for your flag, don't fight for your country, don't even fight for yourself. Fight for the man next to you, because he's the one who's going to save your ass.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what we need to do, Vinny, is start to trust each other. It's the opposite of COVID, isn't it? This COVID response where everyone's got to be 2 meters, and it's really is the ultimate divide and conquer mental kind of playbook. And I mean, my degree's in psychology, right? I'm not a computer programmer. That's just something I do for fun. But that's how I see it. Is like, no, we should be bringing people together. We should be, trust thy neighbor. Right? Like, and we always have this idea that, it's funny, isn't it, when it comes to intelligence, we always think we're 10 points more intelligent than we are, right? So we're 10 points more intelligent than the neighbor, 10 points more intelligent, but actually that's the issue, is we just need to actually have a little bit of faith in our fellow people.
That's right. Now, what was it? The Dunning-Kruger effect. It actually explains that. They got a whole bunch of people who knew a lot about a subject to give a bunch of answers to a bunch of questions and rate how confident they were in their answers. They weren't terribly confident in their answers. And then they got a whole bunch of people who didn't know nothing and gave them the same questions and asked them how confident they were in their answers. They were extremely confident. So basically, the more you know you don't know, and the less you know, the more you actually think you know that you don't. All right.
So true.
So, and the universe is quite simple, and I think maybe the wisdom of the crowd can actually be explained. One time, somebody asked me, "Hey, Vinny, do you think the Earth is flat or round?" And I go, "It's neither, actually. It's a holographic fractal collection. What was it? Creation of collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively." All right. Now, what that means is a hologram stores information. Okay, so you've got a hologram of Vinny Eastwood. If you half the size of the hologram, there's a half Vinny Eastwood there, but it's still the exact same data that's there. It's just half as complex, right? So if the universe is a hologram, that means everything's a repetition of the exact same information up and down the chain. Now, because it's a fractal as well, it means you can zoom in. So it comes to microscopic to macroscopic. You look at a cell, the cell grows bigger, it grows into an organism, the organism grows into a planet, the planet grows into a star cluster, that kind of thing. And the collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively thing, they've done a bunch of studies and things of that nature where people would sit round praying or people would sit round meditating in order to accomplish a specific goal. One time in the United States, they did a meditation in Washington, D.C., the murder capital of America, and they meditated to reduce the murder rate by 30%. The police chief at the time said that it would take 6 feet of snow to accomplish that, but they accomplished it anyway.
There was transcendental meditation, right?
That's right. And another time in Syria, near the Ararat Ranges, a archaeologist, Jonathan Gray, had discovered the wreckage of a boat in the mountains, a giant boat. All right. And but they couldn't get into it, right? Because there was just too much rock. There was too much stuff everywhere. It was buried too deep, and they weren't allowed to excavate. So they had this huge prayer group meeting for them to be able to look at this boat. Then a huge earthquake happened, and the boat got raised 6 feet out of the ground.
Wow.
That's the holographic fractal collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. That is the wisdom of the crowd. My very special guest has been Daniel Suter. VoteNow.nz is his website. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for helping out the Outdoors Party as well, in the ways that you have, offering them some of your expertise as well. They've desperately needed it over these last couple of years. And I think that we can bring people together if only we realise that we are part of the hologram. We are not the hologram itself.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, Vinny. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to talk to you as always.
Thank you, brother. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, that's the show for today. Please, if you can, donate to the Vinny Eastwood Show, either through starting up an automatic payment to KiwiBank, PayPal, or Patreon. I do want to actually take a moment here to admit something, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an incredibly ungrateful little shit. To a large degree. I don't thank you enough for supporting this show. I don't thank you enough for giving me the huge amount of likes that I get. Like, it's disproportional. It's 90+% every single show, you guys. Thank you so much for all of that. We have just topped 47,000 subscribers, ladies and gentlemen, in, less than half a month of having Billy TK on once a week. We've gone over 1,000 subscribers grown, and that is amazing, folks, because I've been stuck at like 46,000 subscribers for like years. It's been impossible. Every good show that I do, I offend somebody and they go, I'm unsubscribing. And then you got so many people that have subscribed for many years being automatically unsubscribed for no reason whatsoever of YouTube. So the fact that we have been growing at all, ladies and gentlemen, is all due to you making that extra effort. Last people I want to thank right now are the mods, the wonderful mods that we've got here in the chat room. Amos 777, W9 24, D McLaughlin, and everybody else who's been moderating. I think that On the Fence with Muzza was on here earlier as well. So Richard Bonner too. Guys, thank you so much for all of your help keeping the riff-raff out of the chat. Now, in my opinion, censorship is kind of like an official capacity. So if Google censors you, that's censorship. If YouTube censors you, that's censorship. If Vinny Eastwood can't be bothered putting up with your crap and deletes the comment and blocks you, that ain't censorship, okay? Wait, is it? It might be censorship.
I think so, Vinny. I think so. You got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, you should take the good with the bad, but except it's usually personal and it's attacky and it's trolly and that kind of thing. And I'm a very, very immature, sensitive, oversized man, and I get super angry and it absorbs so much of my time. So the question is either A, read the comments of people and block all the people I don't like, or don't read the comments at all and just keep doing shows. And at the moment I've been reading the comments, and maybe that's been the stupidest waste of my time ever. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your abuse. Thank you very much for your support. I love it all now because Dan has helped me see the wisdom of the crowd here.
Nice one, buddy. Cool. You have a great afternoon. Get outside, get some sunshine, eh?
Cheers, brother. Will do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes.